Psalm 100 verse 3 says, "Know that the Lord is God. He made us. We belong to him. We are his people, the flock, his shepherds." And so in a world filled with self-centered leaders, the idea of shepherding according to divine intention seems elusive. It seems far-reaching. But the problems associated with shepherding are not new to human race. We know. We've read about it. We've heard about different wars, bad leadership. And when you go back to the whole experience, it's all about poor or bad shepherding. Christ formed his people to restore shepherding in the manner of what God intended, and he modeled it for all of us. And so, as I continue to reflect on this, it took me back to Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 28. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, after our likeness. Let them have dominion." So I want you to take note of that word, dominion, to rule over. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the tame animals, all the wild animals, and all the creatures that crawl on the earth. Pay attention to this. In the list of those creatures mentioned, human beings do not make the list. We are not listed among the rest of those creatures, because within the divine order, all humans are equal. So God's intention was that we will revere one another. We will respect one another out of reverence for God himself, because he made us in his image and likeness. Very important. Therefore, where do we get this bad shepherding from? Well, it comes from the perversion of God's original plan for humanity. And so what do? We turn that word dominion into domination. And that is where we are. Because what God ordered was have dominion, rule over these creatures, not over one another. So in that state of creation, humanity was good. That was the original intention. And God gave that order, that authority over humanity to rule. And so I want to just differentiate between dominion and domination to kind of help us hit the message home. Now, the authentic authority to rule or to have power over every created thing is God's original plan for humanity. That is the reason for how dominion, rule over them. So dominion is an attribute of righteousness. It's for those who are upright. So it is for those who are in the state of grace, to use our own language. So this is the thing. In dominion, you ascend. You stand above every other thing. You rule over animals. You rule over your desires. And your desires will serve you. So with dominion, we have endurance. We are able to endure. We are able to have victory. We are able to have integrity. We are in that state of innocence. So what happens when we turn dominion into something else, into domination? Domination is usurpation. We arrogate power to ourselves. We arrogate authority to ourselves. And so what should be of God, we change. We change the order of God. And so we all turn to controllers. So any inordinate control over creation are perversions of God's original plan for humanity. So, whereas dominion is what pertains to the righteous, domination is an activity of the unjust. It is what we do when we fall short of grace, whereas dominion is when we are in that state of grace. So in domination, we descend. And it makes sense, it's very clear on my mind that instead of ascending because of the dominion God has given us, once we begin to fall into domination, we are going down so that animals will rule over you. Animals will rule over us. And instead of animals serving us, we serve them. Instead of our desires surrendering to us, we let ourselves be ruled by our own desires. We serve our desires. And so what are the characteristics of domination? Well, abuses, violence, oppression, intimidation, manipulation, dictatorship, and in most cases, the quest for absolute power and control, not only over the animal kingdom, but also over humanity. That is not what we see in God. So standing today to talk about the Good Shepherd, I want us to look at those two words, dominion and domination. Because we are still called to leadership, to shepherd. But we know that the real authority that God gives to us can be turned into domination. When human shepherds turn dominion into domination, Jesus, who is our divine shepherd, will turn domination into what? Salvation. Whatever dominates us, he saves us from them. He turns them into salvation. He sets us free and leads us to eternal life. That is the power of the Good Shepherd. That is what we are given today. Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one can take them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one can take them out of the Father's hand. The Father and I are one." And so you could see that unity with the Father and the Son working together to guide his people, because we are his people, the flock he shepherds. So Jesus is that good shepherd whom the Father has sent to tend his flock. His victory over sin and death by his resurrection has made him Lord. So there is that absolute unity between the Father and the Son. And Christ becomes the Lamb shepherd. There is a line here in the second reading that is really very touching to me. It said, "These are the ones who have survived the time of great distress. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb." And think about it. Blood is red, but they washed their robes white. Beautiful image there. But what does that mean for us? It really means that there is victory. There is innocence. When we turn to God, when God set us free, we are cleansed. And that turns us away from the original sin and whatever can hold us down. That turns us away from the dominations of this world. And so we could be under different dominations. But the greatest of all domination is sin. And St. Paul made it clear in Romans chapter 3, verse 9. He asked the question, are we better off? Are we better off? Jews and Greeks or Gentiles, we are all under the domination of sin. And that is why you may have someone you expect to be a good leader today, whether in the church or in the civil authority. It's very easy to give in to domination instead of the dominion Dominion is the authentic power we have received from God that makes us to rise above everything. And so because of sin and weakness and all that, we want to have that authority over people. That is not what God made us to do. It is not anywhere indicated in God's plan that we will rule over one another. No, we are brothers and sisters. We are all equal in that sense. And so you look at how things are going wrong in our world. You could see domination in civil authority, in leadership, even within the church. And so where do we turn to in this case? We turn to Jesus. That is why we have a day like this to reflect on the power of Jesus as our good shepherd, so that we have that consolation that he is the one leading us to eternal life. And that when we have that tendency to dominate others or to turn to domination, then we know that that is not right. We were made only to have authority and dominion over the animal kingdom. And today we find it in different races, one culture over another. One race feels more important than the other race, and war is still on. Why do we think of this? It's that same domination that is going on. So we lack the shepherd who will lead his people to the pasture. And so because we want to control, then we turn to violence and intimidation. Majority over minority, those who feel they are more than the others, turn to domination. And then we find this in many, many different ways. But thank God, God is God, that he does not exclude. And look at this. This message from the Gentiles was very clear, that the Gentiles were delighted when they heard this and glorified the word of the Lord. That God has commanded everyone to be part of the salvation that Christ proclaimed. So, what is it that you have? You have the authority that God has given to you to have dominion over some creatures, but not over one another. We want to get that right. So Christ came to bring us together so that one who is mighty in all ways will bring his children together under one fold. And that is why we are here. We still proclaim the same message. We want to go out and have dominion over everything that can pull us down, but not allow ourselves to be dominated, because domination is not the way of God. Dominion is. That's why Christ has dominion over everything, and his dominion will not go away. We share in that same dominion, that we will, by his grace, let the power of the resurrection help us to stand over every desire, everything that can lead us into sin. Because if we don't, then we turn to domination, whereby we descend even lower than animals. So it's our choice. We want to share with Jesus in his shepherding as a good shepherd, or we become bad shepherds who only tend to dominate, turn to domination. So today, may Christ enlighten us in all ways, that we all will be led by him to eternal life by the very victory he has given us in his resurrection.